are. But on, call the meeting to order. May I have the clerk call the roll, please?
You've got Chair Bernie Pigeon, Vice Chair Dave Hurd, Jody Smith, and myself, Jerry Stefanski. So we only got 4. We need 5, so we don't have a quorum.
Correct.
Glenn was trying to get in. I mean, I got an email from him that he couldn't sign in or get in. Glenn Lawrence.
And
So he's in the neighborhood
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah. Perhaps he tries again, he might, because we couldn't get in ourselves.
Right.
Really. I'm sure Bob is working on that.
Bernie, I can always pull the Spartacus and say, I'm Glenn Lawrence.
The first issue on the Article 1 budget transfer, the 100,000. We did get a chance to talk directly to Derek on what his intent is. So I would appreciate it if you would just fill us in on background, please, Derek.
Yeah, so there's sort of 2 different ones that we're going to go over here, Bernie. One is the interdepartmental transfers and that's because of the veterans assessments being higher than we had anticipated. If you remember, we made a slight cut to the veteran service line for this fiscal year. The reason being they were trending really low. But it looks like part of that was sort of a false data, if you will, because as soon as really the economic impacts of COVID-19 happened, it looks like a lot more people started applying for the veterans assessments. And we need about 35,000, we're estimating. So we're going to transfer from the health budget line, not health department, but the health insurance line. And it would be, we currently have $8,082,299. We should be in the black in that by we usually have about a $150,000 to $200,000 not surplus, but a cushion, if you will, in that, and we're going to exceed that this year, so we'll do all right. There's no harm in pulling the 35,000 out of that line, so we'll transfer that over to the veteran services line, which would bring it from 370,000 to 405,000.
Derek, could you just explain the veteran services, what's in that account?
Yeah, so there's 2 things. One is we share a veteran service agent with the mutual communities, and we're based out of the Cape Cod one, and we get an assessment based on our equalized valuation split between all the communities, which gets us, I believe, an agent 2 days out of the week. They're over in the multi-service center. That costs us, just depending on their budget, about $24,000. Then the rest of that number is actually payments made to veterans that can earn them. So it's community.
What type of payment? Excuse me. What type of payments, Derek? I'm a veteran. I want to know if I can get in on this.
For some of it's the disability, so some issues like that. So it's some of them that whatever you can qualify for. So I can hook you up with the with Mr. Crockett if you want. I just might need to transfer 37,000 now.
Yeah. Thanks.
The right work to this job.
So
A
that's
certain amount of
and
that-
that's we
Excuse me,
get
certain amount of that's reimbursable.
right about 80% of that.
80? Okay.
Yeah. So next year, what our next year's veteran service really wouldn't be, you're almost 2 years behind on that, if it makes sense, because the cherry sheet's really reflecting FY20, not FY21. So. So not the veterans agent portion, but the assessments, the payments made to the veterans is
The benefits, yeah.
reimbursable. Yeah. So, and then Bernie, the other transfer, which I'm trying to remember which article it is, and I apologize. I thought it was.
This is the 100,000 you were requesting for the.
Yeah, and for some reason I thought that was under Article 2 or 3, but I can't remember. I apologize. I don't.
Article 1 budget transfers.
Article 1 is budget transfers, but Article 2 is,
Okay, I'm looking at the wrong town meeting.
Yeah, the special is the Article 2 is the fund parking. Article 3 is the spring capital. And Article 4 is the transfer of available funds. That's the one you're looking for.
yep, thank you. Article 4 for the transfer of available funds. What's been happening is there's some of the grants that we seek have some of them you can do in kind for the town's mashing portion, which is the work that we do. For example, Mr. Menard's crew out there working, using some of their machines. However, some of them have a cash match. So if you have a $100,000 grant and they expect you to put 10% down, you need $10,000. So looking at this, I said, why don't we have a fund that we can draw off of in the event of a grant? Because we're really only taking our legislative actions twice a year, and it's a bit cumbersome. So we'd hate to miss out on some of these grants. So 100,000 out of what's left in the STAB fund. I think all told, with everything, this would leave us about 900 some odd thousand. So after the other capital items and such.
And the explanation in our report lends to what, as you described, it's more expedient if we have a small grant that requires, as you point out, $10,000. Mr. Menard can go forward with working on that instead of waiting for us legislatively twice a year to actually supply the money that is necessary for that grant.
All right.
And it, as a matter of fact, currently, David is performing in-kind services, I believe, for Bessie Park.
Correct. That's what they performed in-kind services. Some other communities will put several $100,000 available in the TA expense line for projects and such. We're not a community that can actually budget that, if it makes sense, because we budget pretty tight on the revenues. So using it through the free cash makes a lot of sense to set the reserve out. And if we utilize it, great. If you don't, it's sitting there for the opportunity.
And I might add that it is dispersed at your discretion.
Correct. Yeah. What we do is since I'm the one that has to sign off on all the grants, and they would come through my office, only, they would need my A-OK. So nobody can't just be anybody reaching into the till, if you will.
Good. Any further questions, gentlemen? Nope. And Tom was on just a moment ago too, I believe. He had joined us.
Yes. Is this going to be something that we're going to be funding on an annual basis?
Yes and no, if that makes sense. If we utilize it, yes, I would say bringing it back. I mean, we could start, Dave, if we really want to start a
Revolving fund, perhaps?
Yeah, it started as almost a revolving fund, but you need to put cash into it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I thought about it as a stabilization fund, but this STAB fund still requires town meeting action to withdraw from it. So a lot of times setting up these articles is the easiest way to do it in without requiring additional time frames. So in the future, if we wanted to, we could actually put free cash into the same article if that makes sense. So I wouldn't mind building it up, because there might be a time where we've got a grant that's a 50% match, but it's a $1 million grant or something for a dam or seawall. It wouldn't be bad. But I'm going to guess once that reached a large amount of sum, somebody with needs is going to be knocking on my door saying, "Hey, I know where there's some money."
Right.
So right now it's something similar to the unemployment insurance.
Yeah.
In that we just keep replenishing it to maintaining it at its level, but it is in unemployment. We only have to reimburse it for let's say the 25,000 versus the entire 200,000, which was the purpose in moving it out of the budget.
Right. Moving out of the budget allowed us to make an accounting level cut to the budget, if that makes sense. It's still something you have to pay, but utilizing free cash, we don't have to over budget for it to account for our needs. And it looks like the last round we put in there, shouldn't have any more really COVID issues. That should last us at least another year sometime. And given our historic, it could last us up to 3 years or so. So it makes sense to have pulled it out of the budget.
Indeed, I think it's very practical. Yeah. And another question, either you're changing your background, because I know you're home. Painting is that a painting, or is that the buoys that you have scooped up on the beach?
Yeah, that's paintings. I think there's a metaphor for them being buoys. We're trying to need something to rescue us. So.
Okay, any other questions, gentlemen? Okay, well, thank you, Derek. If you want to hang on, it's up to you. If you have needs to go, we understand.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll hang on for.
Okay.
I know that Dave has had Dave's kind of been in the back-to-back meeting scenario. So.
Oh, it's one of those days, Dave. Okay, the next item, the spring capital. After we had done our review and all, the backhoe had a injury he suffered, and I think it has to do major surgery and all. But by all means, fill us in with the details, David, if you would.
Yeah, it started last week. We had a transmission filter actually exploded right in the building as we went to use it for a funeral, full burial. From there, it just, I guess I had John Deere. Actually, we tried looking at it at first, and you need some special pressure gauges and whatnot to get at it. So I had John Deere come down. They did a assessment at it, and there's a pressure valve inside the transmission itself that's connected to the pump inside, right behind the torque converter. So it's a big detail job. You have to, get that backhoe up in the air because it takes a lot of room they got to drop it out from the bottom. It's going to be split in half. The transmission is going to be split in half to get at that valve to see why it's causing a pressure spike. And it's going to be a long time down and out by the side. I called him today, and it still hasn't even gotten in the shop yet because they were so busy. I dropped it off last Friday, and it said it might be another couple days before they can even get it in the building. Never mind get it repaired. So it could be quite some time before I see it back in service. And where this is the one and only backhoe that the department has. I guess there's some free cash available. It was on the capital plan already. So I figured we'll try to get this replaced. They have one available to actually purchase. So this is why I'm seeking to get it done right away. That way I'm not down and out without a machine. Also, even if we do get I was talking to Bernie the other day, and even if we do get that other one repaired, we have to always, because it's the one machine. So we have a funeral, we have to so a catch basin down or something. We have to schedule it. I can't run, I can't run 2 guys to do a funeral, 2 guys to do a catch basin because we only have that one backhoe to be able to do the work. So this department should always have 2 machines. And then if you do have a major fallout like this, you're not stuck completely. And that's what pretty much the basis of it is.
David, it's your intent to get this one repaired and then request simultaneously, obviously with this, request a purchase of a new machine. You're moving up, as I understand from the capital planning, a year or 2 years for this purchase.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe it was 2 years difference. It was scheduled for replacement 2 years from now.
Would it be practical in this purchase to have it not only be the backhoe, but also have a bucket on front so it could simultaneously back up the current one you have, which has only got a bucket, and then the one you're repairing?
No, they do have a front bucket. This, this new one will have, that's why I'm trying to look at the, it's on state contract, same type of machine for I can use all the attachments. So we do have like, grapple buckets, type of things, so it's a quick connect, so we can use either one. So either machine in a pinch. So yeah, that's the new one I'm seeking would be set up to use all the stuff we currently have. Would not,
The repair cost for this machine that's in the shop, do you have that within your budget to cover?
I'm hoping so. I don't know the number yet, so, but I'm hoping I do. Derek, do I have enough? No, we should. Hopefully it is.
Oh, which one? Which one?
This is Nora. Say hi to everybody.
I know.
Hi, Nora.
I still think we've got something called the Finance Committee Reserve Fund. We can utilize for a little bit if need be, Dave. So,
Well, wait a minute now. We had already committed to that. I'm going to Florida soon, and there's other issues.
Be careful.
So what year is this backhoe and how many hours on it? Is its life expectancy is pretty much running out?
No, it's a 2011. It's 10 years old. Usually 10,000 hours. It's pretty much it's toast. But this thing's just hitting its 5,000 mark. But I mean, again, we use this machine for everything. So a 10,000 lifespan for what we do with it is probably on the high side. It would be, it's repairable, it'll be a great backup machine because, you don't have to utilize it as much. So like I said, I think for the department's needs, I think it'll be good for having an additional machine to the fleet.
I was in Padula Brothers today. They had a whole bunch of brand new equipment in there.
Yeah.
You know Padula Brothers?
Padula Brothers, yeah.
Or whatever they're called now. But
Yeah, that's tractors. That's farm equipment. Smith equipment.
no heavy duty.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it really depends on what's on the state list.
Yeah, state contract. Yep.
Oh, I know.
RFP.
Now, this is a full-size backhoe. It's not a backhoe loader then.
Yeah, that's what a backhoe is. It's got the front bucket and the hole on the back. Backhoe.
So it's a backhoe loader.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
That makes them
You use
very.
it 5 hours a week?
What's that?
You've been using it 5 hours a week?
5 hours. We use it a lot more than that. That's like, that's a major piece. Behind the loader, front end loader is the most piece we use, but that backhoe gets used pretty much on a daily basis every day for something, digging a grave, repairing roadsides, catch basin repairs, and you name it. I've used it at the water pollution treatment plant to assist in installing pumps for them and stuff. So like I said, it's a piece that we utilize a lot.
Yeah, but David, you've run it for in 9 years, you've run it 5,000 hours, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How many hours a year? How many weeks a year?
How many weeks a year? 52, right? Weeks a year.
Yeah,
Okay.
52 into,
5,000
no, it's 5,000 over 9 years.
over 9 years,
So you're using it 500 hours a year,
500 hours a year. That's what
okay?
it comes out to. I didn't figure that out. So
Okay, wait, so now you're using it 10 hours a week.
10 hours a week.
You don't need two of them to run 10 hours a week. Come on.
Okay, well, this is the situation we are now, Tom. I don't have a backhoe. So how do I bury people? I beg, borrow, and steal. Rent machines. What do you want to do? Highway. It
What's
doesn't
it
matter.
cost to rent one?
It doesn't matter. It costs about $4,000 a month. Either way to me. That's why you can make your decisions, yes or no. And it's the way it is. That's why I'm here in front of you. And right now I don't have a machine. So everybody wants things done and they want it done yesterday. So we don't have much staff as it is. And I'm not shoveling stuff by hand, Tom. The days are over.
Well, that's what the finance committee's for.
We did, I just want to clarify something that we've already approved the purchase, and the purpose of this discussion is to give us more background as to the requirements. And when I was speaking to Dave several days ago, He had one project going, and this is when the, prior to the backhoe collapsing on him, that he had a project going, but had to leave it because he had scheduled 6 graves that required, and you don't postpone that. That's a priority, unfortunately, because of the mourners, of course, and he had to send it over there to the cemeteries and concentrate on that while whatever project or projects were sitting there had to wait.
Not knowing how long it's gonna take to repair, what's the lead time on a new one? I know you gotta wait till certain time before you can spend the money, but
Yep, it's that they have one available. They have one machine in that 310 zone that's available. So as soon as it is authorized, it can be purchased. So the 20 days, I believe, after that, Derek, is it after the special 20 days?
Yeah, look, we've notified them that we're bringing it to town meeting, and we're hoping that if it passes town meeting, they'll allow us they'll start the process before we actually get everything, before it passes the AG and all that stuff, if you will.
Yeah. Now, as far as to go back a little bit, Tom was concerned the last time that someone should have gone out, looked at this, et cetera, et cetera. Actually, under charter, we have the Capital Outlay Committee, and that's the committee responsible for going out and examining the whatever piece of equipment condition is in and making their recommendation to us. And then we look for the money if it's practical to spend on that context. But we don't have to go out and roll under in a dolly to check that it's leaking underneath or anything like that. We're the money people.
Dave, does that have a tack or an hour meter? And I tell you, the difference is like in an airplane, as soon as you turn the ignition on, the hour meter starts. Whereas the tack starts, but it goes at a lower rate than the hour meter does. So actually, if the hour meter says an hour, the engine may only have been turning over like 0.8 or 0.9 of an hour. So if you're running off a tack, you're probably putting more hours, ignition hours on it than the tack shows.
Yeah, I believe that's the key. It's by ignition. It's a
Ignition, yeah.
by ignition, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because it could sit there idling or it could drive from point A to point B.
Yeah, either way, a tack will turn. It's just that it turns at the tack turns the higher the RPM, the higher the tack turns. So if you're looking at a tack meter, I mean, it's guaranteed for hours or it's guaranteed per tack. There is a difference because at the end of 1,000 hours, the hour meter would be 1,000 hours, but the engine may overturn tack time may only be about 850 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. The equipment I'm familiar with, we used to run by hour because it would sit there idling sometimes.
Yeah, and when you look at it, this is why our capital plan is fluid. We obviously had highlighted that it's an issue and coming forward. It just happened to pop a couple years early, and looks like it could be, it's going to depend on what we really see from John Deere, and it sounds like it could be salvageable to make it work. So you have two with a backup. One of the things I think people don't realize is, like Dave said, water pollution control facility uses it. The water districts will use it as well too when it's needed. So it's a really versatile piece of equipment. Having two of them now, one which is going to have a longer useful life, and one that can be used for dual projects and such, makes a lot of sense at this point. Unless, of course, the repair of it's 200,000, then I think we'd say no to that, right, Dave?
That's correct.
And I think it's important to take note that this machine is not used exclusively by our maintenance department. Water pollution control uses it. They don't have a backhoe. The Onset Water and Wareham Water also borrow it at times. It's kind of mutual.
Even Department of Natural Resources uses it too also. They pick off things off their barges and stuff with it, using it to pick up moorings and things of that nature. Even that department utilizes our equipment here to there.
Have you had to use it for a deer?
Yeah, deer, burying deer.
Oh, gosh.
Picking up sunfish off the beach, all kinds of stuff.
We don't have to go into everything. Any further discussion, gentlemen? There being none, David, thank you very much. Appreciate your giving us more background.
All right, you're welcome, Bernie. Thank you. You guys have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Tom, I think I know where the next sunfish is getting buried.
A sailboat.
Let's see. Oh, Alan isn't on tonight. He probably,
Let me just doesn't make any sense.
what is that, Tom?
The pedo hours and the having two of these babies. If we're only using it, if it's only being used and it's the only one in town, I'm not objecting to that. That's great. But it's still only be using 10 hours. Its average use is 10 hours a week. Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
not sure how accurate.
we
that
can't
is.
be on fire for something we'll only use 10 hours a week when we can rent it at United Rent or whatever they are down on
At
Mountain Avenue.
4,000 a month. I'm
Tom,
not
the only
sure-
thing I would say to that is when you think about it, that's 2 working days a week when you've got your uptime, downtime of getting set up. So that's, if you look at it that way, it's 40% of, it's used 40% of our work week.
Which is fine. You're gonna go get it, but we don't need 2 of them.
So,
You got 2 of them to maintain. You got fuel in them. It's
Well, whether you track it by tack or by hour on the unit, the units I was working on umpteen years ago, and we tracked by hours, say one thing and we would know that it was much, much more than that when you consider what we were doing with it. And I was all farm equipment. And so it's also the type of work you do with it. Measuring the hours, it only tells you the number of times or the number of hours the engine's been running. It's what you've been doing with it in that time period.
but it tells you you've been using it for 10 hours a week. I don't
Yes.
care. That's what it tells you.
You could be sitting there idling, waiting for the work to be done. As Derek has pointed out, there's prep work that needs to be done on an issue. If you lift something out of a hole that you've dug, you got to wait for that to be running, and they don't keep shutting it off and turning it back on again all the time. And I'm just trying to say that there's a lot that isn't measured on the hour meter. Anything?
It's an indication of how much time it's used, Bernie. I don't care if it's sitting there idling for the whole 10 hours. It's going to show 10 hours.
Yes,
And that's how much time you've been using it.
correct. I'm just alluding to what it's being used for during that time period also. Hey.
Okay, what's been the maintenance cost of the one that's idle right now?
We're not sure yet. They haven't got an estimate.
We don't keep track of that?
Oh, that's all done internally.
Well, yeah, but what has it been? What's the maintenance we've gone into this
I don't know.
when we're getting repaired?
That's the
maybe.
capital planning committee should be providing that information. That's their responsibility, and they should provide it to us. It's not for us to go out and seek it.
But to get it approved, you should make your case with an indication of how much maintenance, what's the involvement of this equipment? And you make your whole case for having 2 of them. I don't see why we need 2 of them.
I would tell you, considering Mr. Menard ran the mechanics shop for over a decade, everything they do, I understand the finance committee's role, but I gotta tell you, I'm less of the micromanager. I believe the staff when they tell me what we need. They're the boots on the ground and how much they actually utilize. I know what you're saying on the on the amount of use for the machine. We're not counting certain downtimes or periods of the year. It's, if you will, and Tom, it is an artificial one to break it down per week, because there could be times where you're using it every single day for for 5 weeks in a row, and you have multiple burials. So you're taking something, and I would say the p-value of that, if you will, is it's an artificial number. Now I understand it's the easiest, simplest way to break it down over the 10 years, but is not an actual reflection of the utilization.
But
Because
it
you
should
need to
be
have it-
part of Dave Menard's thought process when he goes through on a piece of equipment is what does it cost? What's the machine cost?
Yep.
How often does he use it? What's the maintenance cost on it? How long has it been running? All of that should go through. And then you get the whole picture and he's made a case.
Yeah.
But he hasn't made a case. He just comes and says, I'm broken down. I need one.
Tom, he's made a heck of a case where the finance committee's approved it, the capital planning committee's approved it, I've approved it. I know it's not Tom Worth, but we're there, buddy.
No, I'm not, I've approved it. I'm just trying to get the discipline in the thought process so that the town understands totally why the money's being spent and how it's justified.
Yeah, and I agree, Tom, but you're also forgetting about the time when we used to have maintenance directors that could sit in their office all day and do these. And where we have our maintenance director that's actually in the sites, working the machines and doing other things. At some point, this town needs to realize we have cut so slim that you're not going to get the same things you see from other communities that have the staffing and such. At some point, this is going to be one of my biggest frustrations, Tom. We have if you will, we've got champagne desires with a beer budget, and that's a natty light budget. I'm not talking the good stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
So and we expect, and it's a failure by me actually, because we always, no matter what, we deliver to this community, but we expect so much without putting the money in for the return. And it's getting more and more frustrating.
Indeed. Gentlemen, let's move on. I was hoping that Alan would have joined us in that he was the principal resource for the information regarding the difference on the marijuana delivery between delivery and courier. And
He gave us a write-up.
beg your pardon? Yes. And the only issue is if you're delivering from a retail establishment, and it was just a question I have, I was hoping perhaps Alan could have answered it. We were in a meeting yesterday morning and that particular issue didn't come up, but a retail establishment could contract with a delivery agent, I believe, and they could be delivering for the retail. And the alternative, the courier, I believe, could be delivering, and he could be a manufacturer and could be delivering to customers within the community and outside the community also. They are not restricted by boundaries. The only, in each issue or each situation, we would still be collecting the 3% tax plus the kickback from the state of another 3%. Assuming the legislature doesn't change the legislation on it, because the owners of the retail establishments and the like are pushing for them to do away with the 3% additional over and above the sales tax. But that's about it. That's the only information I have on that issue.
Bernie, I'm not sure I understood you correctly. When I read was that if the courier is in town X gets the taxes wherever it's delivered.
Yes.
A, B, or C. So it's the delivering carriers, the point of origin.
Well, yes, because if the retail establishment has contracted or is with the courier, then because they originate within Wareham would receive the 3% sales tax. Now the courier is selling, he's buying it from the retail operation and then delivering it, is my understanding. Now, wherever he delivers, it doesn't make any difference. The fact that it's sourced within Wareham, we get the, 3%. Same with the delivery operator. He is sourcing from a manufacturer, and he could be the manufacturer himself. Again, we are gaining the 3% sales tax if he's sourced from Wareham, even though he may deliver it in Carver or Plymouth.
And vice versa. If he's in Plymouth and he picks up in Wareham and delivers wherever.
Wherever the marijuana is sourced from is the one who gets the sales tax. Because he's not allowed to grow it himself. He's not the source, unless he could be a manufacturer.
Sure.
This is another license within that grouping. And when you consider that practically every state within New England is now approving the use of marijuana and having retail operations, it will impact our revenues, because we are very fortunate in that for those who were heading for the Cape, they could stop in at Wareham and pick up their marijuana for the weekend and go on. But now they can pick it up wherever they live and go on. So it could impact our revenues. And of course, every other community will be adopting the delivery bylaws also.
Right. The only, if your community hasn't approved marijuana or retail, I believe that they're not allowed to sell in those communities. But overall, this is what we were trying to explain to folks, was the first year, especially since we were the fourth community, if you will, to have a active retail. That was our best earning year. I believe it's about 1.2 million, if you will. It's even with all these other retailers coming on, they're just cannibalizing from one another.
Right.
These sales again will just cannibalize. Now it's better for us to have it via the have it in town. That's why we'll put a couple of them, so we don't have surrounding communities like Middleborough, Rochester, etc., delivering into our community and losing out on those retails. Concerns I have is, again, really the major concern is, and excuse my plain speak, the communities have had a major screw job from the Commonwealth on this, and that is the impact fee. The impact fee is what we've talked about, and I think you've been hearing me preach about this for a year. That is already being, there's already lawsuits on that, and the marijuana companies trying to stop the impact fees, in that they're saying, hey, there's really no impact to the community. By law, you need to back this all up and show all the impacts. So outside of the retail licenses, the rest of these, the manufacturers and growers, that's all impact fee. They aren't, you can't charge the excise tax to them. So, we've been generating some revenue and will continue. At the end, I imagine we'll stay right around the $1 million mark, which has been fantastic. But again, we need to keep on building up the revenue in this community. There's, Bernie, as you rightfully pointed out, to get $1 million, we need about $100 million. So if you think about marijuana, even though it will eventually stagnate, and once the 3% from retail falls off, we could go roughly below $1 million. It is like we brought in $100 million enterprise. So this is the, it's the concerns that I have, that the community is asking for more and more more and more services, if you will, and yet the revenue opportunities to generate are not being approved or are disappearing. We only have so much ability. Yesterday on the selectmen's meeting, we had somebody saying, well, what you really need to do is start using the town's assets to generate revenue. And that's what we're doing with Tremont Nail. That's what, that's what we've done with the opportunity zone to try and get people to invest in the community. It's all the things we've already been doing. And I think the sad thing is just a lack of general knowledge. And, we obviously, we're not chest thumpers. We don't go out there and tell people how wicked awesome we are, if you will. But, you've seen everything that's happened from the S&P global reports that are showing our bond ratings being the highest ever in the community. It's because of the work. It's not just the town employees; it's you, the volunteers, that have been doing, especially and backing up the policies and generating them. But it's to essentially start hearing from the community that we've done squat over all these years is getting more frustrating. And to start having economic opportunities being taken away without a backup plan is just it's really tough. And as the guy who's obviously with your support, help, and input has had to try and keep this Titanic afloat, if you will. It's getting a little crazy. So we really, there's not too many opportunities even regenerating the commercial properties that we have, because I wrote in the letter, I don't think people understand how limited we have for commercial and industrial, what low percentages of the community, because we have so much residential. So it's we really, we're trying to be clever, we're trying to be on the forefront of things, but there's I think we're trying there's a stripping of future assets or revenue generating before we have anything to fill those holes, and it's getting a little nerve wracking, if you will. So
Indeed, you alluded to our tax base, 82% is residential. The rest is commercial and agricultural. And that's one of the limiting factors too, when they consider going to a split tax rate. When you subtract Wareham Crossing and Cranberry Highway, Stop and Shop area down there, you're left with nothing but, I'll call them mom and pop, commercial operations. And they're suffering from this pandemic, but they're shoestring operations anyway. No one's making big money, so that's very difficult to try and increase your tax rate or your tax revenues off of the very people who are working very hard to try to sustain the community itself.
right. And you hit the nail on the head, Bernie. That commercial includes all the agricultural 61A land in our town. Does everybody understand that all the cranberry bogs are part of that commercial percentage? All of those. So, and we get a reduced amount of those. But when you think about it, so let's extract those. How much is actually the true commercial you get? And somebody said, well, I shouldn't be paying the same. Okay. And this sounds crazy. It sounds like I'm being belligerent, but the question's why not? What's going on? What's the impacts to the community? What's the revenue generated? And I know that can sound a little snide to people that are really struggling to pay their bills, but we need to really understand if we're going to do a split tax rate and push stuff onto commercial entities, what's that doing? You lower a tax bill by a little bit, but that's not bringing more services into the community. That doesn't do anything. It's a pure shift. It does not generate more revenue. Does not help our revenue issues.
And even the commercial properties that people may allude to as you go down the main street, Route 6, Cranberry Highway, you see some places with empty lots or some commercial locations. That's only one or two or three. And you're lucky if they invest or able to invest $1 million to develop that single piece of property. You need at least 100 more of those, as I said, to make that $1 million increase tax revenues. So it's very difficult to be able to say that, oh, we have a lot of properties that are developable. Yes, they are. And we hope to do so, but it's not the actual level that we truly need to be able to restore all the services we've had to do without, let alone add more. So anyway, we've been going on and on. Let's move on.
Oh, wait a minute, but everybody's crying in the beer, then the answer is increase the tax rate.
We can't, 2.5 are limited.
You-
Have an
you-
override.
You can do an override. The retail business is in trouble because of Amazon, and it's not going to be blossoming. So you just got to look at it. If you need the money, we got to make a case to go for an override. That's what I mean,
Yes, I agree, Tom.
we just can't sit here and ball on it. We just got to do it.
You're right, Doug, because and one of the things is I received a letter from somebody, including a book, who said they were horrified that the library has to raise money. And I looked and I realized, oh, they said they moved here 2 years ago. They didn't remember in 2014 we had put in front of the residents to fully fund the library. They didn't realize all we worked together with the library trustees and such to start funding the library, and we had an agreement for their fundraising and the town putting portions in there. And it's all this historical knowledge isn't there, and it's we have this new group coming in that probably expects things from the communities they've been in, but haven't realized what's happened over the last decade or so.
Yeah, I find a lot of that on Wareham Matters and the like. And it's not that people aren't well-intentioned in their comments and the like. They just don't have the history that we've gone through. And it is frustrating that we've all had to live it and sacrifice as a result of it. But as Tom says, we have to forget all that. We're in a situation now, we have to do that all over again because it's required of us. Joe, do you have something?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this and looked into it a little bit, and I was going to bring this up before Mr. Sullivan spoke, but I kind of looked at this and I'm thinking marijuana, but I was adamant against the thing for the NIPS. I was supportive of the thing going up Glen Charlie, and I kind of didn't vote what I thought was really right. So I'm going to make a motion to bring this up for reconsideration. I was in the prevailing side, and I would like to not restrict the deliveries. I mean, that's just me personally. If somebody doesn't second it, so be it. I've thought about this. I've looked into some of these other towns around, and I would like to make a motion to. I came into this without anything that's being said tonight to reconsider. So that's my motion.
Do I have a second?
This is to reconsider the distribution of the couriers and
Restrict it to
distribution.
3.
Yeah, it's Article 8, and we originally voted 4-0-2.
Correct.
Voted in favor of it.
Yes,
Yes.
2 abstentions.
So, yeah. I put a lot of thought into this, and I'm saying, it just goes against my grain. I mean, need money. I think some of it might just switch from one business to another. We don't know that for fact, but I think they want to get a customer base early before some of the other towns around, but it's just,
It's valid. We have a quorum. So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll make a second. Now, this is to approve the couriers and the distribution within town.
Well, initially, it's just to
3 licenses or whatever they are.
consideration of that vote.
Right. So my understanding is the way this is worded, again, and I brought this up last week, is that, and I don't understand what the why is here, but to put a cap on the number of establishments that you can have in the community. We're not approving whether we can have them, but we're saying we only want 3 and no more. So to Derek's point, if what we really need is revenue, why would we put a cap on revenue generating businesses unless It was the nature of the product itself that caused this article to come forward.
Okay,
And that was my issue last week. It was the nature of the product. And after thinking about it, I said, I'm not opposed to people. They want to smoke grass. I mean, but it's just, I kind of let my heart take over a little bit instead. But that's,
the Cannabis Commission has no limit to the number of operators, delivery operators that can perform within the community. The selectmen, when they placed the article on the warrant, in the wording of the article is that they shall be limited to 3. So we can't take any other action other than approve or disapprove as it's in the warrant, which is 3.
Right, but all we're approving or disapproving is that cap.
correct. Well, that's how I read it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I understand that the warrant to read. That
Yes.
the warrant is wanting to insert a cap.
Correct. If we were to recommend denial or refusal, disapprove of this particular article, then that would be, there would be no operators within the community. And they'd have to bring it back to another.
And then I think you need to rewrite the article, because that's not the way I read it. I read it that if we disapprove it, we're just saying no, that the cap shouldn't be 3.
No,
Right.
Let me rephrase. The town meeting vote to amend the zoning bylaws as follows. Add a new section 393.1 to read. 393.1, the number of marijuana delivery operators shall be limited to 3 such establishments.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so do you mind if I give a little bit of background on this?
Certainly.
So we've got, when you think about it, you've got 3 of the courier available just on the basis of us having 3 retail operations. You probably technically could do more if they wanted to morph into the different form. I mean, you think about it as Grubhub or Uber Eats, if you will. And yes, I equate lots of things to food. So excuse me, that's just my nature. Now, here's the question or concern about these sort of delivery operators. These have to come through, and you need to have a manufacturing company. And what they do is buy wholesale, and then they can sell directly to the public, ergo becoming an additional retail operation, if you will. Now, the Cannabis Control Commission says they're not a retail operation, yet they still get charged the same retail 3% plus the impact fee. Now, here's the question or concern. It's a matter of what we saw in Colorado, if you will, of there being a marijuana type business every 50 feet. If it's on main streets and such. This is creating, and I know there'll be great disagreement on this, but this is creating additional retail license, if you will, because it is retail sales directly to the public. So my concern is thinking of this as the town's business operation. I want the greatest, if you will, the highest price for marijuana in this community. And I know that's probably ticking a lot of people off. Why do I not want the price to be, the whole market to be diluted and the price to go down? Well, we get a percentage of those transactions. You're only going to have X amount of transactions no matter what. So if we have X amount of transactions, I want that Y value of the cost per, the amount per transaction to be as high as possible. And I worry about the diluting of the whole market, if you will. I know what people say, that you don't have, we can't control what's happening in Middleborough or Rochester, but we can, in a way, control what we have within our own community. So that's where I'm concerned about, is, if you will, diluting that market, because there's only so many buyers, no matter what.
I have a question, and I'm splitting hairs in this. According to the statement I received via Alan, and it was the from the director of, one of the directors of the Cannabis Commission. The marijuana delivery operator license allows establishments to buy wholesale marijuana products, warehouse them on their premises, and deliver directly to consumers' residences.
Correct.
Now, they have a second classification, the marijuana courier license. In the article, it says delivery operators. Now, that could be construed as just delivery operators license. Now we have the second category of the courier license, allows establishments to pick up marijuana and marijuana products from licensed retailers only and deliver products to consumers' residences. I'm not sure if that's splitting hairs, if in the category they feel the word delivery operators also includes courier, but apparently from the Cannabis Commission, they have two categories, courier and delivery. So I'm not sure how that's going to split out. We could spend the rest of the evening talking about it and over the splitting hairs and all. However, bottom line, right now, the article says the number of marijuana delivery operators, and they are buying wholesale and marijuana. They're not buying from the retail. We have three retail items, but they are limiting those delivery operators to just 3. That's what the article says. That's what our vote is on. We can't change it. If we want more operators or we don't want to limit, it's not our choice. We have to vote and read only what is on the warrant in that article.
Correct, Bernie. And that's where we're talking about. It creates 3 new de facto retail operations.
Yes, it does.
But does that limit the couriers also?
No, Bernie, are you okay with me speaking?
Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. No, Todd. Sorry, no. David. The couriers really, I mean, that's, if you will, they're buying from. That's the delivery person. That's delivering from the
Retailers,
if you will. Yeah. So, and then they probably, I would expect them not to do too well business-wise in the future, because it's going to be the retail purchase from Verilife, let's say, plus that courier cost in there. Whereas the other folks don't have the retail overhead. They're the wholesalers, if you will, doing retail sales directly. So I imagine these couriers at some point would fall out of favor because the cost to deliver their product would be so much higher. The couriers, you have to have 2 people in a vehicle, and think about them as a mini marijuana Brinks truck, if you will. So.
It seems the intent was from the Cannabis Commission was to allow minorities an opportunity to invest within the cannabis business, because the retail operations have been bought up by all these large conglomerates now, spotting the obvious profits that are available. So I would suggest, and just to boil this down, that delivery operators, as used within the article, means to refer to either courier or delivery. However, again, it's only limited to 3. And so, Jody, you indicated not wanting to cap. That choice is not within our purview.
Okay. I'm confused even more now, but that's okay. Doesn't take much. But
we're back.
if David's willing, I'll withdraw my motion and let the chips fall where they may.
Very good. Thank you. Any other discussion?
I'll withdraw the second.
Okay. Any other discussion on this issue?
No.
Okay, we can move on to something a little different. Now we'll go to the sky. We have Richard Swenson had approached me and asked if he could address the committee on Article 17, which is the amendment to the solar bylaws. And of course, the petitioner of that particular amendment is Nancy McHale, and she is partnering with Richard in the presentation this evening. And so I will turn it over to Richard. And I would say just a moment, Richard, our original vote was 2-5-0 to approve, 5 for disapprove, and 0 abstentions. So Richard, did you want to address us, please? And go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about what we're trying to accomplish here and why we're trying to accomplish. And it's very, very important for this committee and every committee to understand that we are all behind solar, and we like solar. We like what it does. We like the revenue it brings to our town, and we still want to maximize that as much as possible. Now, myself as a member of the planning board, we recently approved 3 new solar farms that are going to clear upwards of 180 acres of forest. They are going to move 1.3 million yards of sand and soil to put those solar farms in. And the reason that we as a planning board approve those is because our laws are very open-ended and very lax. I've talked with solar design firms and engineers who have told me that the Wareham laws are very lax. And I also want you to know that our laws are based on state guidance, from what I can tell, and they're similar to laws in many other towns. All that being said, what we've thought was the best approach for us to take to get a little more control and direction available to the town on how we implement solar farms in town was that we needed to quickly get a firewall up in regards to our bylaws. And the reason it's important that we do that is that as we speak, solar farm developers are submitting subdivision plans to grandfather themselves into the current bylaws. The longer we wait to update our laws in any manner, shape, or form just extends that window to allow them to do that. I know I have been told there are 4 subdivision plans that have been submitted for solar farms in the town of Wareham that will be able to move forward with the laws, with the current bylaw set. All that being said, phase 2 of this operation that we're trying to execute is to get the firewall up. That's phase 1, 10-acre maximum, previously cleared land only. Let the solar farms that are applying right now move forward. There's probably going to be more between, if this article were to pass and the Attorney General approve it, there's going to be more. There's going to be plenty of solar farms still moving forward, and the planning board will have to approve them as long as they follow our laws. But there won't, once we can get the Attorney General to approve a passed article, then we'll have some control. In the meantime, after that happens, we work with town government leaders, we work with citizens, we work with solar farms, engineering teams, we work with property owners that want to do solar farms, and we come up with a comprehensive bill that addresses all the different aspects of solar. We just approved a new solar farm up on North Carver Road that's going to be in the cranberry bogs. Cranberry bogs are going to continue to operate. It's much larger than 10 acres. And this new comprehensive bill needs to allow things like that to happen. But right now, our laws are so open-ended that we don't have any control. So I want people to understand this is a 2-phase approach. I do not see solar farms slowing down, but we have to get some controls in place, and we have to get them in place as fast as we can. Phase 1, we're going to put up a hard firewall, 10 acres previously cleared land. Phase 2, my goal would be fall town meeting. We're going to put in much more controls about setbacks, about cranberry bog farms, about visual impact, about residential impact, and talk to the developers, work with them and get input from them so that we can have a comprehensive, everybody wins type of environment. We have great opportunities in Wareham for solar farms, but we've got some really bad implementations right now. And that's because our laws allow it. And we need to address that. And that's the whole purpose of this. So I want people to understand it's 2 phases. We're not against solar. We think solar is going to continue over the next 18 months, pretty much as planned because of people filing subdivision plans right now so they can move forward on 2021 and 2022 projects. But maybe for 2023, we can have some controls in place that we don't have now. And any comments, questions there? And Nancy here, she wants to talk a little bit to this from another perspective.
I was going to bring Nancy in next, if she'd like to address. Bob, could you bring Nancy in, please?
I believe I'm already here. Thank you.
Yes. You're not-
I
you're not video,
appreciate it.
that's
I just wanted to also let you know that of the 19 large solar farms that have been approved, built since 2014, of those 8 are less than 10 acres. So the question about viability of the 10 acres it has come up repeatedly. So I can't imagine that those people would have actually built those smaller solar farms if indeed they weren't financially advantageous to them. But I totally agree with what Richard just laid out in terms of the phase 2. That has always been the plan. And we've spoken with some of the industry folks like Borrego and talk to them about, their willingness to cooperate on, some of the technical aspects that might need to go in there. Talked to the Conservation Commission, et cetera. But there are definitely things that need to be brought in. Last night at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, Judith Whiteside said that she would be willing to work on the committee figuring that out. Obviously, Derek is a huge wealth of knowledge as to what the resources are for the town, what the revenues are, et cetera. Working with Jackie Nichols on what the income is going to be for the town. All of those things need to be taken into account. So I agree with Richard that this is a firewall. What we're trying to do is just, I don't know how many of you gentlemen follow the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board hearings and hear their voices when they have to say, yep, we have to approve cutting down 75 acres of trees because we can't do anything else. We have to approve the removal of almost 2 million cubic yards of sand and gravel because we can't do anything else about it. So those are the kind of things that we're trying to stop right now. So I will stop at this point and ask you if you have any questions, but I appreciate you taking the time to take another look at this bylaw and look at the intent behind it.
Nancy, you've limited, and I'll start with my question, if you don't mind being chairman. You limiting the 10 acres and already cleared land. But there's several areas in the community where there are some old cranberry bogs that are fallow and no longer used, and they're already cleared and would be outstanding to allow the solar panels in those particular areas. And because they are so convenient, let's say, as far as the development is concerned, but you're limiting it. You don't have an exception within the proposal. It must be 10 or less acres and cleared within the previous 5 years. How do you address those potentials?
It would
In 5 years, not within, at least 5 years.
At least 5 years, right? It would be that they
That's
would
important.
have been cleared for at least 5 years. I would say that at that point, it would be a matter of exactly how many acres are the solar panels going to occupy. That's the real question. And are those bogs larger than 10 acres, is the solar going to be more than 10 acres on that? Or if they're going to start looking at those now, then perhaps build it in phases and put the 10 acres. When we wrote this, the solar over bogs had not been approved yet. So there was a question as to whether or not that was even going to be approved in town.
Bernie, can I respond to that a little bit? It's a little
Yeah, of
different.
course.
It's a little different than Nancy's take. My take is that I fully expect that something that we would do in phase 2 for the fall town meeting of 2021 would be much less restrictive than what we're talking about right now. And that's why I called phase 1 a firewall. I think phase 2 is going to have to take into consideration the new technology about raised solar panels in cranberry bogs in 20, 30, 40 acres may be acceptable there. Maybe even more than that. I don't know yet. I need to talk to the industry experts. I need to get this feedback, but we're going to have plenty of solar farms that are going to get installed over the next 18 months under the current bylaws we have right now. There is no doubt in my mind of that. Revenue is not going to be impacted. It's going to move forward. And by the fall town meeting, which is only 6 months away, that gives us 6 months to work with our government leaders and maybe even a formal alternate energy subcommittee to come up with better and less stringent than this phase 1 article.
Well, and just I want to qualify my comments. They're referencing dormant bogs. These bogs weren't operational, but they're just sitting there unused, and they've been dormant for quite some time. So this open area that has been cleared, and they have the opportunity for that. That was the context of my question. But
Sure, I understand. And we need to consider all those things over the next 6 months, assuming we can get phase 1 approved at the Springtown meeting.
Okay. Gentlemen, any other questions, comments?
Yeah, just make sure I understand this right. So you're just looking for basically a firewall, as you refer to it, until the fall town meeting, and hope you can get something more comprehensive passed. Maybe, that's all you're looking for here. Or it might be the next Springtown meeting before you really can get the language you're looking for. But you see this changing drastically in the not too far future.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the most important thing is that if we're successful on phase 1, we have to quickly step up and start phase 2. If we get into a situation where we're not ready in 6 months for fall town meeting, then we have failed. And it's going to be critically important that we work with our town and Derek to make sure that we have a solar bylaw system that protects the town and also generates revenue for the town. The revenue's out there. We got to get it. There's no question we have to get it. But I think we need to do it a little smartly than massive clear cutting and terrain disruption to the tune of over 1 million cubic yards of fill. That's craziness in my mind. I'm sorry. There's plenty of open space that we can do solar farms and do it in a less impactful way.
If I may just jump in for a second, one of the conversations, actually, we had this conversation many times in the citizens group that was working on this solar bylaw amendment, and that was whether or not to do something like this, which still allows for some solar projects to come forth, or to do a complete moratorium. And we felt that this was the more appropriate way in order to get it passed and have the inertia then to continue with rewriting the solar bylaws, as opposed to trying to put on a complete moratorium.
Well, I have a problem, meaning no disrespect for the number of hours that you and others have put forth in this bylaw change that you're recommending, as you call it, a fire stop or something. You are an informal group. There is nothing about you that has been charged or can be charged with the responsibility of doing it. So it's my concern that as this informal group has no mandate to actually come forward with a alternative bylaw at, as you outlined at the spring annual town meeting. And that's my concern. You, as a group, and pardon me for being so pessimistic, you could fall apart tomorrow in spite of all your good intentions and your skills for doing so. That's my concern as far as going forward.
So to that point, Bernie, when we presented this article to the Board of Selectmen and asked them to place it on the warrant, and they declined to do so, Chairman Titlebaum was clear that he felt a alternate energy task force, subcommittee, whatever you want to call it, was appropriate, because he understood and agreed with the fact that our bylaws are very open-ended and loose. And at that time, I was ecstatic to hear that, because I have the exact same concerns that you do. We're, a group of citizens trying to move forward on some of this stuff. I'm proud of us that we've gotten as far as we have, but I would be a whole lot more comfortable about phase 2 if we had a formal committee that was mandated by the town to go execute.
Indeed, because I, as Finance Committee Chairman, cannot charge you with the responsibility of returning with a bylaw for the annual town meeting in April.
Totally agree.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, if you
Yes.
don't mind, I think Richard kind of hit something. All right, here's my concern, because there's no guarantee about town meeting. What happens if this passes and then we go to the fall town meeting? We've got people that believe solar's a crock. There's no such thing as sea level rise. We have other people that believe something else, and it doesn't pass town meeting. I think a moratorium, and this is going to sound weird coming from me, a moratorium would have been would have been correct, if you will, because a moratorium sunsets.
Yeah.
That way, if we could not get it through town meeting, or you could not get something, it doesn't put the town in the hole for the future. Some of the smaller solars that I looked at, the project, some of them are considered the Fletcher, which was really, that was a group of them put together. But I think people forget the SRECs and the original credits were much more in the beginning of solar. And now it's they're not getting as much money back on all of the credits, which is why I think you've seen some of the bigger ones come through, because it's less financially feasible to do the smaller ones. I do worry, as I said, that the area that would be more impacted is more of the residential areas, if you will, because that's the ones that are sort of cleared for the time being. Richard's right. I think this bylaw did prompt some filings because people wanted to make sure they got in ahead of them. I don't know how many more you'd have. And I actually don't know how many more solar projects there would be of this scale in the future. My concern is that we vote this, it goes through, and there's, we all work hard together. I think there's, Richard and I sometimes have butt heads a little bit, but I'll tell you, there's nobody more earnest who cares about this town than Richard. So it's coming from a good spot. And as I've said, I've always appreciated Nancy, and I think that she does a tremendous job. I'm fearing that their good nature and earnestness, if you will, may not be shared by others. And but we're sort of seeing that backlash, and the people like Nancy and Richard that are fantastic to work with don't necessarily aren't necessarily the same as other folks. So
yeah, that is my concern also. As I said, there's nothing that would cause this group to come back in April with an appropriate bylaw that would pass. And under the circumstances, which is one reason why I think the committee chose initially not to recommend it, is that there's too many apprehensions and potentials that could actually harm the community long-term. under these circumstances. I would agree with Derek. And yes, if we could put a moratorium, that would mean we'd have to come back with some alternative. I would suggest don't take if this should fail at the town meeting, that don't take it to heart and come back in the April town meeting with a revised or with an appropriate bylaw to try and control this growth that we're trying to cope with.
Last comment before I drop Bernie is that we investigated moratorium, and the feedback that I received was that we were much more vulnerable to the Attorney General overriding us if we went the moratorium route. A lot of people have talked about how restrictive they feel this phase one bylaw is. And I will tell you very clearly, I've done a lot of research and looked at a lot of towns, and Nancy's provided a lot of data about this. The model that we're proposing is based on the Falmouth model. The town of Dover, Massachusetts has a solar farm overlay district that I think is like 3 acres maximum. That's all they allow in their town is one solar farm that's 3 acres. The town of Sherburne has about 7 acres that they've designated as a solar overlay place, and it's on their old dump. And this is not, how do I say this? I'm not worried about getting overruled by the Attorney General on this at all, because I have found so many other towns that are much more restrictive than we are. And like I said, the moratorium idea, that I'm all for the moratorium. That's a great idea. But I don't think the AG is going to let that happen. Anyway, I'll be quiet.
What would have done within our community is if it imposed a moratorium, it would require the planning board to come back with the alternative. It would place it into a formal board that we have control over and can place requirements on, i.e. coming back with an appropriate alternative to the bylaw. It would impose action on a formal board and have them responsible for doing so. And as I getting back, you're all very well intentioned and very skilled, and I give you credit for the number of hours you put into this, but it's not a requirement.
I hear you, Bernie, and you know what? I wish you and I had talked earlier about this, because I think we would have added that requirement into this somehow or some.
See, everybody leaves me off the conversation and they get in trouble.
I did reach out to Derek, but he was pissed at me that day, so we didn't do anything.
Richard, I will give you one tip. Please do not compare us to Dover or Sherborne at town meeting.
Oh, okay. Good one.
Give you that one help.
Weston has 100 square yards. If this is such a big money operation, why the heck aren't we in it?
Because we have to be able to own the land and sell the land. The landowners get X amount per lease, but then we get so each megawatt in this last pilot agreement, we get $12,000 annually per megawatt, right? And then a 2.5% escalator for the next 20 years. So where would you have us step in, Tom?
Well, I mean, we got trash, we got sewer, we're just going to have power. We just get some solar fields and some batteries and start selling electricity.
I gotta tell you, Tom, we have a municipal light company where I am, and I'll tell you, it is fantastic. When the power goes out, because they're only servicing our area, it comes right back. It's really, and we have some of the lowest costs. So it's, maybe there's something there, but after the footprints.
Derek, I was just twisting, that's all.
No, what I'm saying, Tom, is after the footprints on my back over trash, I don't know what else I would get into. But
Bernie, I have to drop, but I will tell you that the planning board was unanimously in favor of this article. So that with that,
Richard, could I ask you one quick question before you leave?
Sure.
Just a process question. So this article came forward as a citizen's petition. So what would be the mechanism for phase 2?
Right now, it would be a continuation of that same citizen group that.
Okay, so it would also be a citizen's petition as well, too.
Well, that's the only thing that I know can happen. I am very, very hopeful that somehow the town, through the Board of Selectmen, creates a alternative energy task force or subcommittee to execute the very same thing for us. I mean,
Right, then that would be the mechanism that phase 2 would come through.
well, if they don't form that committee, it'll fall back to the citizens group.
Okay, that's fine. I was just curious how it was going to work.
Could the planning board on their own initiative do something?
At this time, I would hesitate to think I could get that to happen.
You have to wake them up.
Working out on Bernie.
Hey, Richard, dumb question. There is nothing that states in there, though, that something will be brought to fall, or there is something.
No, there is not.
Okay. But no, I know if you say it, you'll do it. So I think that in this climate right now, I could imagine it passing. So I think it's hopefully we'll be setting up meetings that week thereafter. So
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, my hope is that there's a tab on the planning site that says zoning study committee. But there's no members and no agenda. So, that seems like a pretty good place to start. But yes, absolutely, there is inertia, or not inertia, but there's momentum here, momentum to get us moving. And I think that we need to capture that right now, because our bylaws are 2014. These are 2021 problems. We need to.
So Richard, if there's a bylaw study committee on that's subservient to the planning board, and you just happen to be a member of the planning board, why don't you take some initiative and get it started? And that would give your group formality that it needs.
Absolutely. I'm all over that.
Great.
And Nancy's going to be leading the charge. I'm going to be following her, trust me. But she's great to work with. She's one of the most logical people I've ever met. And we are diametrically opposed on several issues, and we are joined at the hip at several others,
Jeez, it sounds like a marriage.
Anyway, I do have to drop. I'm in big trouble, so I'm gonna go.
Okay. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard. Okay.
Okay. Are there any further questions on this issue?
I'd just like to say that I really appreciate the edification that we had from both Nancy and Richard. The fact that this is an ongoing process and this is an interim step in there is very, very important as far as my vote is concerned. Thank you very much, both of you.
You're very welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nancy.
Thank you.
Now, as I said, our original vote was to approve, 5 disapprove, and no abstentions. Is there any changes you would want to make on a reconsideration?
I'd like to vote for reconsideration. Make a motion for reconsideration.
I have a motion for reconsideration. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Joey's second. For the purposes of discussion, any concerns? There being none, may I ask the clerk to call the roll?
You woke up Jerry.
There it is. Bernie,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
myself, yes. So it would be at 600 for reconsideration.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing to that, though. Even if they didn't come back in the fall, I don't think it's going to be from lack of effort. Just knowing Mr. Swenson the way he works as hard as he does in Ms. McHale. I mean, I think they will get something together, but it certainly won't be they don't from lack of effort. They put a lot of work in for the town.
Oh, indeed.
And people need to appreciate that if things don't always work out.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. I'm
Pardon
gonna
my
throw it
ignorance, but
over.
what do we got on wind?
Beg your pardon, Dom?
What do we got on wind installations? We have,
No, nothing that I'm aware of.
If
well,
we use,
No
If we-
windmills.
yeah, Tom, if we harnessed it during our meetings, we'd have unlimited energy, but
well, so, wait, I mean, why are we just doing solar?
because that's really what's the development that's been happening. And I echo Member Smith's comments that my only concern would be about town meeting itself, but I have no doubt that Richard and Nancy would burn the midnight hour to, to get this done. So that don't have any concerns about that. They'll probably kick my butt into more meetings than anything. So.
I'm sure they will. My pursuit of trying to have some kind of formality was to lay to rest any concerns one might have. As the candidate said the other day on candidates night, we run this whole operation on volunteers. We have very few employees, outstanding employees, I might add, but we still have very few that actually get compensated for all the work that's done to keep this community moving.
Oh, I appreciate the effort that people have done, and Nancy and Richard have done a good job, and I will make a motion to approve the article.
Motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? There being none, may I ask the clerk to call the roll?
Bernie,
Yes.
Jody,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
myself, no, 510.
Thank you. I'll announce the numbers when I'm called on by the moderator, and we'll advise that we had a later meeting and have revised their count.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would just make one recommendation for Nancy and Richard, doing that explanation that it's to, I think, bring it back to fall town meeting. That's the intent. I think that'd be really good for town meeting.
Indeed. And,
Yes.
in our
Absolutely. That's gonna definitely be the mantra. Thank you so much for your reconsideration and for your new votes. I appreciate
welcome.
that.
When I'm called on and I give the Finance Committee's vote, I will also, because it's a petition article, we typically, yes, we approve or disapprove, but we refer the presentation and the like to an explanation to the petitioners. Okay, on other issues, hopefully the weather will allow us to have our meeting outside. There will be one entrance. Michelle found that her system, for some reason or other, does not talk well to each other when they're too far apart. And so there'll be one entrance. There'll be, I believe, 6 stations to register, however, going through the same process, hopefully having our driver's license and the barcode behind it, although it is not required. And we ask for volunteers to hand out the Finance Committee report. And Claire has asked that when you hand it out, that you verify that they have the stamp, because we have 250 copies are printed, and there may or may not be, we may have overestimated perhaps the concerns of 1 or 2 issues. So, and no, the emotions are still high on the notice vote. So it's possible we may have more than anticipated, but they be that as it may, we only have 250. I called in, I had originally ordered 200. I talked with Peter and Claire, and I opted to go in and order for another 50. The cost will be almost close to $2,000. It's a 120-page report because we have 2 town meetings. There's a lot of supporting data that is in there. As a matter of fact, I had a call from Ken. He had proof 1 or 2 of the articles and caught that there was a word or 2 missing from one of them. And then I had to go back to the original fall town meeting when it went on to a consent agenda, but it was in our report and it was the same wording that I have in the current report. It was just a cut and paste when we put it together. And the other one was on the special. And I said, well, if it's a critical issue, when I suggested when I make the motion or read the motion in, that I clarify that there is a change or an additional wording that is required, but the article does say it is on in the town clerk's office in its entirety, and that's in the warrant article. So that may cover the issue, and so we just say there was a wording error in the printing of the Finance Committee report. But those are the only two errors. Anything else, gentlemen? David has already offered to hand out reports as he did last town meeting. Can I have someone else that might volunteer to do
I
something?
mean, I'll do it again as long as it's not 2.5 hours like the last time. That was.
These preconditions you placed, Jody. I mean,
We can only hand out 250 warrants. After that, we're free.
Good point.
Well
Good
done.
point. Yeah,
Mhm.
So
good
people
point.
should get there early to get their warrants.
Yeah, good point.
So that, so there's, I think they're laying out 250 chairs. So it'll be a smaller venue. Again, I will be on the trailer with Peter, Rich, and Claire. I just want to make also, before we go out, there will be another meeting in June, late June, in which we typically do a reorganization for the following fiscal year as we go forward. And I just wanted to announce that I'm not going to put my name up for being chair. I've been doing this long enough. I have 2 more years left on my term, so that if you choose someone else, I will be available to help them to go along. And I've spoken with Derek about getting a secretary. And although I put this together pretty much myself because I just didn't know, and it's very difficult for this together to delegate other than proofing and getting you people to do some writing of recommendations. That's a cut and paste issue. But to try to put everything else together is difficult. And David had proofed it, and I made all the corrections on Monday and was able to get it to the printer Tuesday morning. And I hopefully should have it available by Friday. I've also asked them to put it on a USB drive so that I can put it up on the website and make it available to you as well as to the public. Any further discussions, any comments?
Nope. Thank you for your work, and I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye, aye.
Hey.
Very much.
Have a good evening, everyone. Stay safe.